Hello everyone and welcome back to Java Forever course. Currently we are learning about two-dimensional arrays. In the previous classes you have learned how to create a two-dimensional array, how to read and write or update the values in the array, how to iterate using loops or nested loops to be more specific. In today's class we will learn how to accept user input and store it in a two-dimensional array. Now, if you remember, in one of the previous class where we learned about one-dimensional array, we did a very similar exercise. In that class, you had seen how to accept 5 user inputs, store it in one-dimensional array, and we also learned how to use a loop to optimize our code. In today's class, we will apply the same learning, but instead of using one-dimensional array and one for loop, we will use two-dimensional array and we will use a nested loop, loop inside a loop to achieve the same. Let's begin with an example. In the code on the screen, as you can see, we have created an array to store our values. We created an empty array. We said string with two square brackets, a pair of square brackets, and imp IDs, a variable name, and we declared this will have 2 rows and 3 columns. That means we are going to create a table with 2 rows and 3 columns. Now the first value we are going to ask for is employee ID 1, and user will enter a employee ID, and we are going to store it in 0 0, which is 0th row and 0th column, this value. Then we will ask enter employee's salary, and we'll store it in 0th row and first column, which is this is going to be our salary. This is going to be for ID, and finally we will ask for 02, which is employee's name. So this column is going to be for name. So we will do this, and then we repeat the same for first row and 0th column, first column and second column. So this and this. As you can see, we are building a 2 row 3 column table, and it is obvious from this string, when we defined our initial capacity, 2 row and 3 column. Remember, rows index comes always first and then column index. Now this code is related. If we don't want to do this, we could have declared 6 variables, independent variables, and we would have stored the values in those variables. Rather than doing that, we learned how to use a table to store the value. Now we can optimize this code further by using a loop. But remember, when you are dealing with two-dimensional data, you are bound to use a nested loop. And we can see here, let me scroll down. You can see here the code here that I defined a row and column as 2 constants, and I have declared an array, and I'm using the row and column here perfectly fine. And then I'm also using this row and column constants, and you can see static final as 2 constant declared here. Now using one loop here and then a nested loop inside a loop, we can simply populate the imp ID's value I and j by changing. When I is 0 is going to be 0 and j is going to change from 0 to, when it says 3 and I'm doing less than, that means it will be 0, 1 and 2. So this will be 0 and 1, and this will be 0, 1 and 2. So for every value of row, we will do 3 iterations. That is how the nested loop works. Then for this value, again you will have 3 iterations here. So 2 multiplied by 3, total 6 iteration altogether. This code will run 6 times, and the employee ID in every cell, the row and the column is together, I call it cell. Every cell value will be updated by user's entry, and that is how we will manage. Now one thing you will notice here, that we are not writing the correct labels. If you notice here, every time we accept a user input, we say employee ID 2's name, employee ID 1's name, and all that part. I have left it open here intentionally. I would like you guys to think how we can, in this loop, rather than simply accepting the values and setting it, how we can show the right label. When it is row, then we'll say employee ID 1, and for every column, first column will say salary, name, and third column say ID, name, ID, salary, and name. Now it's a little bit tricky. It's not going to be that easy, but you can do it. Give it a try and let me know. With this, we conclude our chapter 2-dimensional array. I would like you guys to go ahead and give it a try and solve the questions written in the quiz. The more you practice, better you will become in coding. There is no shortcut. Coding is like math. The more you practice, better you become. So go ahead and try that. Go ahead and practice, spend enough time, and master this skill. Once you learn, you will never forget. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you guys again in the next class. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Do subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.